Well, welcome to this episode of The Way of Things. Today we're in the Mojave Desert and we're going to be talking about the Mojave Yucca. We're going to explore a little grove of yuccas up here ahead. I think you'll find it an interesting plant and one that's very iconic to the Mojave Desert and a very important part of the Mojave Desert environment, as we'll see. So come along and let's explore this fascinating part of the Mojave Desert. Well, here we are in our Yucca Grove, and what we have here is a yucca that's growing in a line. No doubt part of it is because of the wind, but the other part is that the shadow preserves the moisture in the ground. So on the shadow side of the yucca, it's a life-giving shadow. This shadow provides life in the desert, and we can see that here. If we look here, we can see the last time it rained, the shadow protected the soil from the radiant energy of the sun, so the evaporation rate was less, and these plants here were able to grow and grow to maturity. As opposed to out here, the ground was exposed to the sun and it dried out faster and the plants just didn't make it. Now, this process has been going on for centuries, and we can see that here with this barrel cactus. For perhaps 100 years or more, this barrel cactus has been living in the shadow of this yucca and has prospered. So we have both an annual and something on the sense of a century, the shadow making an effect. But also we have right here something called a form, and it's a place where a jackrabbit sat in the shade, began to cool off and preserve his body's moisture. And so the jackrabbit has stayed in the shade and also preserved his moisture, much like the plants. But also the jackrabbit, while that's a momentary thing in time, the jackrabbit is also partly an accumulative event or effect of the shadow, because he's eating the plants that grow in the shadow of the yucca. So the jackrabbit is both the past and the present, you might say, effect of the shadow of the yucca. And it's just part of the interesting and integral part of the desert environment. And so with that, let's go on and see what else we can find in this beautiful little yucca grove. Well, here we are in our little walk through the yucca patch, and this is a yucca ring. It's very similar to a creosote ring, and the way it starts is there's a yucca that grows up, its roots go out, starts yuccas all around it, then the center yucca dies, and the outer yuccas, they too grow yuccas outside of them, they die, and this ring just keeps moving out across the desert. In this particular case, we have one of the earlier ones still left here as a rotted old stump that's just barely anything left, and you can kind of see it here. Now, the yucca ring can last maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years, who knows, but certainly I would expect a ring like this to be at least 500 or 600 years, and maybe older than that. So the yucca is a very permanent part of the Mojave Desert environment. It's been here a long time. So with that, why don't we walk through this patch of yuccas and see what else we can learn. Here we are walking through this beautiful yucca grove. There's a lot of fruit this year. We don't have as much fruit every year as this, so this is a very unique time that we can look at the fruit. And this specimen here has quite a bit of fruit, and we can see this is what we're talking about. Now, all kinds of animals eat this fruit. If we look it up here, we can see that the insects have been drilling into it and taking a lot of the moisture as well as the food properties of the fruit. The pack rat uses this. All sorts of animals will eat the fruit. The Native Americans utilize this fruit extensively. It was a staple for many of the tribes. And of course, it still is a staple for the pack rat. He lives off the fruit quite a bit. He'll gather them and store them. He'll eat them when they're moist. He'll eat them when they're dry. And I think we'll see if we can find a pack rat and see if they're eating any of this fruit. And we'll go from there. We have here a yucca and the yucca's constant companion, the pack rat. Now the pack rat and the yucca are in a symbiotic relationship. The yucca helps the pack rat and the pack rat helps the yucca. Of course, the yucca provides its shadow, it provides food to the pack rat, and the pack rat collects all this stuff here that we see in the pack rat nest. And this pack rat nest will eventually decay. It's got droppings, it's got urine, it's got all the other stuff that a pack rat collects. And as it decays, it helps the soil, which helps the yucca. Also, the pack rat, we can see here, has ate the yucca fruit here. This is a little piece of yucca fruit. And this particular piece of fruit, the yucca has been, the seeds have been taken out of the yucca fruit. And then we have a piece of cholla cactus. Now, the pack rat loves to pick up cholla cactus and add to his nest because it helps defend his nest from the coyote and the kit fox and other animals that would try to dig in and, of course, eat the pack rat. So the pack rat and the yucca have this relationship that's very much a part of the Mojave Desert. And so there's more life in the Yucca Grove than there is elsewhere. Well, that concludes our little hike through this Yucca Grove out here in the Mojave Desert. I hope we've learned something about the way of things. And with that, I thank you.